Okay, it's good to be back. But welcome everybody to XLR today. We're here for XLR Sprint for the Tier 2 British Grand Prix, round 3 today. And I haven't been around for the last couple of races, as I have been taking some time off on holiday, but it is always nice to be back. While the holiday, of course, is always good to have, you do sometimes just miss those hobbies that you've got outside, and so that's why it is very nice to be back and here again for you guys on the stream. And first out onto the circuit is Perkins, who is no longer out on the circuit as she has... What is going on there? What is... Why is this the first thing I come back to? Just a Williams dancing on the track. What? Why is it always the first thing back? Oh. Right then, so Jay-Z is out on an outlap. I probably have two invites to deal out quickly. Invite Charlotte and invite Hearts. There we go. So now they can both join the session. But as we are getting... Yeah, sorry. Just having to check things. We are now getting underway for Q1. We've got Jay-Z through Stowe at the moment, before he goes into the Vale Chicane and then around Club to start the first run of Q1 on the medium compound. Comes around the final corner, into Club corner now. And off goes the McLaren driver, barreling down into that first corner of Abbey. The right-hander didn't always used to be that way. It used to take you off to the left and then you'd rejoin it a bit further around the lap. Perkins' car is still there in the middle of the track, as you can see. And she can't take control of it either as you go round, as Jay-Z goes around Aintree onto the Wellington Straight, where around here he would meet up again. Just that road to the right of your screens now is where he would have met back up with that old layout. Now he goes around Luffield and in towards Woodcote and on to the old pit straight. This lap time, you can't expect too much from Jay-Z this time around. Not deploying any ERS and on that medium compound as he goes into the right-hander of that's not Stowe, that's Cops. Into Maggot and now round Beckett and in towards Chapel. Gets back on the power, DRS active, and he goes on to the Hanger Straight with just a couple of corners to go. First up is the right-hander of Stowe. He flicks it to the right. Again, he's not taking too many risks. It's looking rather overcast, so I'm not sure if we're going to see any rain in this session. As Jay-Z now comes around the final corner of Club, up to the line. It's a 129.2 as your early benchmark. Before we have Dom around the final corner, sets a 26.5. So yeah, much more competitive time. Rolling Dice can only manage a 27.9. And then, I believe that is Footface around the final corner. Indeed it is. He sets a 126.685 to go into P2. Then Aston Martin of, I believe that's A-Games just beginning a lap. No, it's not. And Mr. Business with a 126.328 goes to the top off the timing sheets. Then it's Chavi around the final corner on the medium tyres. Can only manage a 126.7, but it is the most competitive medium run we've seen so far. And then Jamie Cash with a 126.434 slots him into P2. Did the hot lap for this week, which I'm not sure how well that delivered, but I'm sure it did very well. While we have tech support as the Instagram admin, and Max with a 127.0 on a soft compound. Perkins' car is still... No, Charlotte is moving. She's just doing this. It's certainly an interesting game at times, this one. And unless the game can improve on the betas, F124 is not looking much better either. Jay-Z around the final corner hasn't validated his time, but he's gonna round the lap anyway. A 1:27.2 would only be enough for P8. There might be even more time to be found in that lap, but we can't be sure. That is fresh just into the Vale chicane now. He's crawling around that corner on the intermediates. Almost has to back out. He gets a big snap of oversteer. Up the line he goes. A 1:31.3. As we just have Hart behind him beginning a flying lap. He needs to make sure. Fresh needs to make sure he gets out of the way nicely, which I assume he will manage. As Mr. Business has got a 5-place grid penalty for contact with his teammate into the pit lane. So I think Jeremy Cash just tried to go a bit faster into the pit lane than his teammate, and it ended up in the pair colliding, and now Mr. Business with a 5-place grid penalty. So at very best, he can start the race in 6th. And Dan round into final corner now of Club. Up the line he goes. 1:26.2 to go to the top by around about a 10th. Then Max just beginning another run as well. And we have Ames on the hanger straight, looking to be saving some fuel. Chavi still has the best medium run we've seen so far, sitting in P6. Hart round the final corner. He goes off Club, goes into P9, a 1:27.178. Perkins' car is going to just remain there for the rest of the session. Just dancing. He's got Cliverty Clive in the final couple of corners now. Got no ERS left, so most likely this is a second run. Round the final corner he goes now. Final corner of Club. Kyle jumps up into P10. Cliverty Clive jumps up into P12. You can actually hear Perkins' car from turn 1. I could hear it. This game is bizarre. As Max seems to just be beginning a run, or maybe he's not. He appears to be not. And then the Haas of Havoc Gamer just began a run. Havoc Gamer with some brilliant form in the last couple of rounds, having started on the front row in Brazil, took the lead on lap 1, before unfortunately losing it again later in the race. But I believe he came home P4 in that race, which was a truly great performance from the Haas driver. We'll see what he can do today with with 27 seconds, 27.8 in that first sector is what I was trying to say. As Cliverty Clive looking to be on his way into the pits, as is Kyle most likely. Yes, he is. Jay-Z is going for another run with 8 minutes left in the session, as Dan and Mr. Business both decide that they have done enough. I think Max looking likely to start another run as well. I have a gamer into the Vale chicane now, for he will come round that final corner of Club. Around the final corner he goes. Have a gamer into P8 with a 1:27.113. That area for 27 or low 27 does seem to be quite contested, with Max 27.002, 27.113 for Havoc Gamer, 176 for A Games and 178 for Hearts. So they're all pretty close. Footface with a 26.6 is not shabby at all either. We have a few cars out on the circuit. I think furthest round a lap at the moment would be Jay-Z, which indeed it is. He's 9/10 up on his personal best through that first sector alone. And make that 2 seconds now that he's up by. You would see him to 27.2. At the moment, that would be good enough for P11, just ahead of his teammate Kyle. So he comes around the final couple of corners now into the Vale chicane. On board with a McLaren driver, so he comes around the final corner of Club onto the Hamilton straight, and he goes fastest with a 126.191. That is a sensational lap that he's managed to pull out of his McLaren there. And Jay-Z now sits top of your timing sheets. Have a game putting into the pit lane, not doing another run on a set of medium tyres. Max also on his way in, as he invalidated his run then. And then Fresh on an outlap for what I believe is his first competitive run of the session. Rolling Dice comes around the final corner now. Game doesn't want me to see it apparently. And Rolling Dice begins his second run of Q1, as there won't be too long to go, only 6 minutes. Perkins' car is still doing some dancing at, what corner's that? That is around the loop. She's just gonna sit there doing a bit of dancing, and I don't think we're going to see any change in that. It's Jay-Z on his way in at the moment. His Heart's going wide and retiring that. Has he just hit the wall at the final corner? I think he might have done. And if he has, then that means he won't improve in Q1. Yeah, he has. Fuck. Yeah, he definitely has just crashed out of that lap, because it's put him, that's put him down to P15, down to P15 when he was previously up there in P10. So Gamer retires from the session only in P9, but he will most likely be safe with that lap. That's jumping up the order there when Rolling Dice, but he can only manage P11. Fresh goes to the top with a 125.8, which is also a very strong lap. Puts him to the top by 0.3 of a second, just over. Just around the final corner comes Kyle, who's about to begin another run, as Grey Pup joins us with 4 minutes left in the session, just as A Games retires. So I think a lot of these drivers retiring were banking on no one else joining. But now we've had another car join the session, they might not be safe after all. Jamie Cash going out for another run, so is Dom. As Footface into Cop's corner at the moment. And joining us now on the grid is Grey Pup in that Alfa Romeo. He's going to have to get a bit of a move on if he wants to set a time, but he should be able to, similarly with Anzac Rex, who also just joined. But then Perkins, she has joined, but she's going to be constantly in a state of moving backwards and forwards, just there at the loop. It's going out onto the, coming into the pit lane is one of the Red Bulls. That'll be Rolling Dice. Williams of Dom just on an outlap at the moment. Jamie Cash, having invalidated, will have to go again. But all of these guys in the top 9 should be safe. Like anyone above Havoc and Aliens will definitely be safe, I think. Anzac Rex has now left the session. Around the final corner goes Dom. He begins his next run of Q1, sorry, which will likely be his last. Liberty Clive doing the same as well. As is Kyle. They're both fairly close to the drop zone, so they will need an improvement on their times. Fresh with that 25.8 retires from the session. Jamie Cash invalidating his time. He shouldn't need to finish this lap, but he's invalidated it anyway. And I don't think he will get a chance to improve. As he goes spinning across the track. Down the hang straight. John trying to take Cox flat out, just about keeps it on the road. Great Pup is going to come into the Vale chicane now. And will, and with a minute and 40 seconds or so to go, he begins his first and possibly final run of Q1. As into the final corner now comes Dom into the Vale chicane goes Dom in his Williams. Should also be safe. So around the final corner he goes into P5. With a 126.3, not far behind Mr. Business's time at all. Jumping up the order as well there was Clifty Clive, put himself into P12, which should just about be safe for the time being. As into pits comes Kyle, he's not going to be improving. Kyle is the driver at risk at this stage, so the question is, can Great Pup achieve a 127.4? If he can, Kyle will be knocked out in Q1. But he has invalidated his time. He should just about get the chance to go again. But it certainly is closer than he would have liked. So he goes into the Vale chicane now. We will get the chance to see what his time would have been. It was only a 28.1, so it wouldn't have been enough on that lap. So we need to see if he can gain, 6/10 or so on his lap if he wants to get through into Q2. So he comes around the loop at the moment, then he goes around Aintree and on to the Wellington Straight. Got DRS active. He's blasting into Brooklands at the moment. To the left. Being quite cautious on the throttle, considering he desperately needs this lap. Then he goes around Luffield and in towards Woodcote onto the old pit straight, blasting in towards Copse Corner. Which will take close to 300 kilometers an hour. Dip down to about 385 through the corner. Now he goes into the Maxim Beckett's complex. The world-renowned section of corners. Loved by drivers and fans. Although possibly not virtual drivers from some of the reactions I've heard. Or some of the reviews I've heard of this corner. Right, so now he goes into Stowe. Just a couple of corners left for him to go. He's got the Vale chicane. And then he's got Club. He needs to get them inch perfect if he wants to get through into Q2. So he comes in towards Club now. Round the final corner goes Great Pup. Is it enough to get himself through? I think it might just have been. Yes, it was. And I think that could see Kyle knocked out in Q1. And indeed, Kyle has been knocked out in the first part of qualifying. A 127.4 knocked him out by about 8/100ths of a second. And Kyle will be taking no further part in this qualifying session, along with Hartz, Anzac-Rex, and Perkins. Right, so Q2 will be getting underway shortly. So we wait for the cars to enter the circuit. We've got quite a few going out pretty promptly. Not totally sure who will be the first. It appears to be a Ferrari of Footface, although he's been jumped by both of the Alpha Tauris and the Alfa Romeo of Max, as well as the Haas of, I believe that would be, that's Habit Gamers. A-Games is now, A-Games and Max, oh dear, is that on my end? That may be on my end. Appears that the lobby has died. That's always fun. I think everyone has been kicked on everyone else's screen. Yeah. Everyone got kicked for everyone. Right, so how are we gonna deal with it from here? I think we're gonna have one short qualifying session. Full again. Okay, we're restarting from the start. Okay. We love lobby restart. Oh, we've got a lobby restart, so I'll put up a poll in the Twitch chat, I guess. How do you do that again? This one. Start a prediction. Start prediction. Right, got a prediction going in the chat of who you think's getting poll. Right, we'll all be getting underway very shortly. Apologies for the break, there's not really much we can do with this game. But we make the most of it that we can. Oh, I forgot to spectate. Oopsies. Yeah, as we're starting from scratch, 29 minutes in. How do we forget that? How do we? How does that happen? I think I've got him on Steam. How do you invite? I should. Oh, it doesn't show him online on Steam. There you go. Oh wait, he's in now. Oh well. Why is the what? Okay. It replaced Max with an AI, which was a bit odd. Oh well. Who's that on the circuit? It's a Mercedes, and it's not Jammy Cash, which means Mr. Business is the first on the circuit, and he's hoping he won't get a 5-place grid penalty for. Go on, those 20 channel points will do a lot for you, Basil. Mr. Business is the first one out onto the circuit. This time he's going to hope that this time around he doesn't get a 5-place grid penalty for a collision with his teammate, because that would be slightly suboptimal. But Mr. Business is on his way out. 3 Max and Beckett's at the moment. $2,500 channel points on Mr. Business for Bowl. Who did that then? I need to see who did that. 2 total voters. Okay. That's interesting. Right, anyway. Mr. Business around the final corner of Club, and off he goes to begin his first run of this restarted Q1 session. He goes into the first corner at the moment of Abbey, round farm and in towards Village. And then, so flick to the left, round the loop, and then he gets on the power, full throttle, round entry, and on to the Wellington straight he goes. And then it's high-speed left-hander of Brooklands into slightly slower right-hander of Luffield. Before he gets back on the power and goes in towards Woodcourt. And now he goes upwards of 315 kilometers an hour into Copse Corner. Flicks it one downshift, one gear shift down before he goes into Maggots. And now round towards Beckett's. And then he goes through Chapel, back on the power, DRS active, and down the hanger straight he goes with a 102.8 in those first two sectors. Keeps it neat and tidy through Stowe on the brakes now for the Vale chicane. And then it's just got Club left to go. So he comes around the final corner, up the line goes Mr. Business with a 126.401 as the early benchmark. Great pup, can only manage a 27.5. Perkins can do a 27.9, which already is an improvement over a previous session. Jay-Z with a 28.9 on that medium compound. Rolling Dice with a 28.1 on the medium. Footface goes into P2 with a 127.1. Then Charry can manage a 26.5 on the medium compound as well. It's not good enough for Bowl, but on a medium tyre run, that's not bad at all. Hearts with a 141.7 is a slightly less than optimal time. Shadow with a 26.6. In a previous session, he was dumb still. The Steam names can be weird sometimes. So we have Max around the final corner as well with a 27.0. Then have a gamer up to the line. I believe it's just beginning a lap, as is his teammate Cleverty Clive. Then we do not have anyone else on a flying lap at this stage, I don't believe. Besides have a gamer who just begun one. Jay-Z might be pushing on this lap, which indeed it does appear that he is. So he was 3/10 up through that first sector, although he's actually a bit down on his time after the middle sector. He does back off, and he's going to have to cool down a bit and then go again, as he invalidates at Stowe as well. But I think Jay-Z is about to begin a new run as well, and then it's having Gamer, I think, is the only other driver on a lap. Dan is currently on the intermediate compound, so he's not taking this one all too seriously. So he gets very loose through the rear end on the exit of the Vale chicane. He's gonna hope that whilst he is on inters, that he doesn't put it into a barrier, because then he can't compete in the rest of the qualifying session, which would not be ideal for his race. We've got Cleverty Clyde in on the hanger straight at the moment, but further ahead of him is his teammate Habit Gamer, who's got his line all wrong through the Vale chicane, but he's kept it going, and it's P6 with not an amazing lap by the looks of things. He's definitely got more time in that Haas car. As Cleverty Clive goes into P6 just ahead of his teammate, which isn't bad at all for a first attempt. Then I believe that is Fresh just coming into the pit lane, and then we see Great Pup also pulling into the pits. No, I could have sworn Max was somewhere else completely on the track, but Max just beginning another run as he goes into Village at the moment. So there's a Williams in the last corner. I believe that's Dan on his intermediate tyre run. Comes up to the line. A 130.6 is the best he can manage. I mean, you can't expect too much from a man on the intermediates, but come on, Dan, you can do better than that. As Footface goes up the line, improved by almost 4 tenths to go into P4, which is not bad at all. And then the two Haas cars on the same piece of tarmac, as I think they're both just on their way into the pit lane. Perkins is not doing very much at this stage. She's just on the hard tires, going nice and slowly. There's a Mercedes there who... No, that's an Alpine. Oopsies. But we will have Jamie Cash beginning a lap soon. A-Games is just on an out lap going into the final corner. And then we have... great pup. No, that's Max coming around the final corner. And he's going to go up to the line, improved by 1/10.5. Can't find any positions though, and he remains P5. Jamie Cash coming into the final corner as well. He's just about to begin his next run. Rolling Dice also about to do the same. And then we have Dan, who will definitely be on his way into the pit lane as he's invalidated his next intermediate run. Then next up we see Kyle around the final corner, who's going to hope he can improve on his previous session. He goes into P7, a 1:27.1. It's not a bad time at all from the McLaren driver. We do have Anzac Rex on a run at the moment. His teammate Perkins is just pulling into the pit lane, so it's all clean track ahead for this Alpine car. He's going to come into the Vale chicane now. The flick to the left and then to the right again. Gets back on the power, right up to the limit with the track limits. Up the line, goes into P12 with a 1:27.714. Then jumping up the order, I believe that was A-Games, which indeed it was, into P11 goes the Aston Martin. And Jamie Cash coming round the final chicane now. Then he goes round Club Corner. And we see what he can do. And he can go to the top with a 1:26.1. Which is a very, very strong lap for Jamie Cash. So the crowd seemingly on their feet in a response to that time. Only 3.5 tenths found for Rolling Dice. Can't gain himself any positions. Hearts on an out lap. And Kyle on an in lap at the moment. So I'm not sure if there are any cars pushing the limits at this stage. We've got Max there who may well be just starting a run. But I could not tell you for sure. And like Rex definitely won't be. Fresh almost certainly will be, but he's not particularly far around his lap. But I think he is the only one, or at least the furthest one, around a lap at this stage. So he goes into Magnussen Beckett. There's a Haas car getting just about out of the way in time. Where he gets onto the hangar straight now with DRS enabled. So 1:03.3 after those first two sectors. There's a McLaren not too far ahead of him, but I don't think they will encounter each other. So that's Jay-Z just beginning a run. Fresh into the final couple of corners. Around the Vale chicane he goes. And Fresh goes up into P9 with a 1:27.175. Then there's many cars going very slowly there. I think that maybe Max catching up to them, although that Alfa Romeo, whoever it is, has decided to pull to the pit lane, so they will not be setting any time. Hartz comes around the final corner with a 1:28.5 at the moment, 1:26.9 at the end of that lap, which is not bad at all, puts him into P7. Perkins around the final corner, starting her next flying lap, and then it's Dan who's going to be doing the same. One of the heavy favourites for pole position and the race win at the moment, having won the first two. To follow on board with the Williams driver who's going into Village at the moment. Gets a tiny bit deep before flicking around to the left in the loop. Gets back on the power. Then opens that DRS flap and goes blasting down the Wellington straight in towards Brooklands and Luffield. Mr. Business has retired from the session. He thinks he's done enough. And in towards Woodcote now goes Dan in his Williams. The striking blue livery that they're running this season. Don't get to see how's it still Q1 because we had to restart because F1 game is amazing. At the start of Q2 it literally just kicked everyone. It's a shame we don't get to use the not letting Dan in was a separate thing. We restarted because it just kicked literally everyone. Into the left chicane now goes Dan. Round the final corner as Perkins improves up to P10. Dan improves to P2 with a 126.2. But it's still not enough to displace that time from Jamie Cash, which he claimed was a bad time. So it is only Q1, but could we see Jamie Cash as a favourite for pole in this qualifying session? I think there's a chance. There's Great Pup just limping his way into the pit lane. We see Jay-Z, who's jumped himself up into P4 while all of that was going on, with a very impressive 126.4. Is he just pulling his way into the pit lane? And Jay-Z will not be setting a further time. Most likely, Jamie Cash retires from the session. He won't be setting any further times. He shouldn't need one. If Jamie Cash got knocked out with that lap, I'd be rather concerned. His Hearts retired from the session in P10. That's a bit bolder, especially considering he has drivers such as Fresh and Kyle behind him. And Rolling Dice too, who's just beginning another flying run. Jumping up the order there went Kyle, as I said, with a 126.7, which is good enough for P7. And then that's a house car into the pit lane, who I believe to be Havoc Gamer, which indeed it is. And then around the final corner, that's an Alpine. That's Perkins going again. Jay-Z retires from the session with his 26.4. Perkins is just beginning another lap. So is Shadow. As will Clive down in 15th. A-Games retires from the session. Not going to set another time. And so he is definitely eliminated in Q1. Rolling Dice 7/10 up already. I see it's certainly looking like it will be a good improvement from the Red Bull. But he needs to make sure the 7/10 will put him to around where Hearts or Perkins are, which won't be entirely safe, but it should be enough, at least for now. So he comes around the final corner. Yeah, and it's the second improvement. Good enough for P8. Rolling Dice should be safely through into Q2. Then we have Fresh on an outlap as well. He desperately needs this time. So he's sitting in 15th. The driver at risk at this stage. Chowdhury retires from the session in P5. As Fresh gets his run underway. Might have cast him by putting him on the predictions as a favourite for pole. But we'll just have to see it. Shadow comes around the final corner, goes into P3 with a 126.302, which will get him safely through into the next part of qualifying. Perkins in P13 retires from the session, so she won't be setting any improvements on that time. Great Pups on and out, that's going to come around the final corner. Clive trying to get out of the way. as he's attempting to save some battery before he goes for his next run, which he's going to start just now. And he'll also get a tow from Great Pup as he's going, which may or may not be the thing that makes all of the difference. Fresh, multiple tenths up through that first sector. I didn't see what, so that's Jay-Z disconnecting from the session, which isn't ideal as he was hosting. It's an 8/10th improvement though from Fresh in that middle sector. Comes around the final corner now. Into the Vel chicane goes Fresh. And he's got Max ahead of him, but he won't catch him enough to be blocked. Fresh goes to the top with a 1:26.1. He delivered when he needed to, and now that pushes Calamity Clive down into the drop zone. And Anzac Rex can improve, but he's only good enough for P16. He's seen the checkered flag. He will not be improving. Anzac Rex is knocked out in the first part of qualifying. Grey Pub is currently down on his time. He won't have... Yeah, he's a 10.5 down. He will not be improving. Grey Pub is now extremely at risk from this man right here, Cliffy Clive, as he comes into Stowe. It's not an ideal line from the Haas driver. He needs to find some time. He pulls into the pit lane, so he will be knocked out in Q1. Great Pup scrapes through on the edge. So I think we're just waiting for Max to finish his run. He's pulling into the pit lane. He's safe through into Q2. And we just have to wait until he finishes his run. And then we can move on. Of course he has to be right at the end of the pit lane as well. Just following on with Great Pup, who did scrape himself through to Q2 on the very edge. And yeah, that last lap was just about enough for him. So clearly Clive's lap just didn't come off in the right way. And so he won't end up taking any further part. But Fresh chopped us in Q1 then, followed by Jammy Cash, followed by Dan and Shadow and Mr. Business. The fact that the tyres aren't loading for half of them is not a good sign, considering the host disconnected, but we're just going to hope it's fine because we don't want to restart again. And so, the second part of qualifying is now getting underway shortly. So we wait to see who will be the first one out. It could well be the Aston Martin of Fresh, who does seem to be coming out of the pit lane first. How about Game is disconnected? I think that's just him. And we're not going to see the same as what we saw last time. As Fresh leads us away out of the pit lane, I shall provide Havoc Gamer with an invite. There we go. So, Fresh just on his way out, followed by basically everyone. Yeah, the majority of the field is going out. Someone's stopped in the pit lane. That's Hart, who's ended up on the grass. Not quite sure how he's managed to drive onto the grass at the pit lane exit, but I mean, he's still going, and getting grass on your tyres doesn't matter too much in this game, so we're just going to hope everything's going to be okay with him. Or if you're a rival, you might hope that everything's not okay. But generally, on a sporting perspective, I haven't used another invite. There we go. Fresh now, leading us through Chapel, and then on to the Hangar Straight. Well, you wait for him to go around that final corner, and then we'll get this Q2 session well and truly underway. So he comes around the final corner, and off goes Fresh to begin his next flying lap of his first flying lap of Q2, the first flying lap of this Q2 session. So he's taking us through the loop at the moment, before he gets back to full power. Round entry he goes, and he enables his DRS, and he blasts down that Wellington straight, reaching speeds up to almost 330 kilometers per hour, before he flicks it to the left, and now back around to the right of Luffield, and in towards, and through Woodcote, in towards Copse Corner, down the old pit straight. It's a high speed, flat out flick to the right for Fresh. It's a bit more than a flick really, but now he takes us through Max and back, it's down to 7th, 6th gear, gets back on the power, opens his DRS flap, back up to 7th, into 8th gear, and off he goes into Stowe now. Yeah, he gets his car just about stopped, flicks it round the Vale chicane, and now round Club. And Fresh is going to put himself onto the top with a 26.9, which gets beaten by Footface with a 26.4. Not a bad time at all. Fresh quite possibly using a scrub set of tyres, as Perkins has gone off at Stowe. Her lap will not be finished, as Cherry now goes to the top with a 125.7. Jamming Cash manages a 26.4. There's a spinning Aston Martin there right in front of Jammy Cash, both of whom do appear to be on in laps. Just a few different ways that they're going about their in laps. At Shadow into the final corner now, and up to the line he goes, into P5 for the 126.7. Not bad at all, although he is almost 2/10, a bit over 2/10 down on Footface. Yeah, so you'd hope for his sake he can find a bit more time when it matters in Q3, although at this stage in Q2 he's just hoping he can keep himself in that top 10. Stan and Havoc Gamer both getting flying runs underway, and most of these cars, or possibly all of them, will be finding their way into the pit lane. Staying out is Footface, as he usually does. He typically does go for 2 or 3 runs at any given time, and off he goes for another one. as does Perkins, who couldn't get a clean first run in after that mistake at Stowe, resulted in him going very slowly through the gravel trap, which is not where you want your car to be if you want to set a competitive time. And now Dan taking through through Stowe at the moment into the Vale chicane, and then it's just club corner to go. There's one flick to the right, and up to the line. Dan can only manage P6 with a 1:26.710, 100th of a second behind his teammate Shadow. And that is not ideal for the back-to-back race winner. A few cars choosing to go back out for second runs already. Perkins did invalidate her time, so she's gonna finish it anyway. Not that it's going to be finished as Footface jumps up into P2, but he's still 6/10 behind Javier in P1. It was a 28.4 on that lap from Perkins, which might not have even beaten Max. So, even if it was a valid lap, that wasn't exactly amazing as they go. As Dan goes into the pit lane. Using used tyres, that's fair enough. Just a few cars. We've got Howard Gamer going into the final sector now. Not currently on a flying lap attempt. He might be going for another one soon, but he's not on one right now. As we've got going on to another lap, there is Jay-Z. Havoc Gamer pulls into the pit lane. I think Footface will do the same. Yes, he does. So that's Jay-Z, who's just begun a lap, coming around the loop and into Village at the moment. DRS active, down the way to straight he goes. He flicks his car into Brooklands round Luffield. Then he stands back on the power as soon as he can, and now he's got to go in through Woodcote in towards Cops. The dreaded corner for anyone driving a Red Bull anywhere near a Mercedes car. But luckily for Jay-Z, he's in neither of those teams, so he continues on, but he does invalidate his time. So despite surviving Cops, he's not going to survive to tell the tale. Rolling dice going through Cops at the moment. He's in a Red Bull, but he survived. He's got the Mercedes behind him as well. Rolling dice needs to watch out. He doesn't get punched into a wall, but he didn't. So that's an improvement over Max Verstappen. So I reckon put him in the RB20 and he'd be winning. Rolling dice going into Stowe at the moment. Before he goes into the Vale chicane, and then it's just club left to go, and up to the line for running guys goes into P5. Jammy Cash behind him goes up into P2 by about half a second faster than Rolling Dice. Fresh 9/10 up on his already pretty solid time. That would see him to around a 26.0. So pretty much exactly where Jammy Cash is. As round club corner he goes. and up to the line fresh. Goes top find 1.4 seconds to a 25.562, which is an incredible lap time from Fresh, especially considering it's only Q2, and we may have just had a change in the race for pole position already, as that was a very strong time from the Aston Martin driver. The words just aren't wording. I've had too much time off. I'm washed. I don't know how you can be washed at talking, but as Carl comes around the final corner, 3/10 improvement to put him into P4. Perkins on an out lap is about to begin her first run of the session. Mr. Business is still remaining in the garage. With only 3 minutes to go, he might need to get a bit of a move on if he wants to set a time. But I think he should just about, well, not just about, he should be okay. Assuming he does get out in decent time and doesn't invalidate his lap. Perkins at the moment going on to the Wellington straight, opens DRS and goes blasting to that first sector split with a 4/10 improvement already. You'd kind of hope it's an improvement to a 1:43, but at the same time the mistake was in that final sector. So 4/10 in that first sector could be quite a decent time so far. She now goes in towards Cop's corner at the moment, in neither a Mercedes nor a Red Bull, so she's all fine. Takes it flat out with just one downshift before going into Maggots and Beckett's. And then into jab. Oh no! She just about kept that in a straight line, but that will not be an improvement. She now has about like a sector which you need to try and recharge the battery as much as you can after a very well held drift, I must say. But a well-held drift doesn't make you go very quickly. Just a few cars who will likely be on and up. She has managed to recharge the battery up to 89%. So yeah, that is very well recharged before it goes off again on another attempt, which hopefully won't end in a Tokyo drift. Fresh with his 25.5, retiring from the session. Jay-Z around the final corner now. What can he do in his McLaren? He goes into P5 with a 1:26.074, which is a solid time, which should hopefully, if you're a McLaren supporter, hopefully get him through into Q3. Shadow finds 4/10 to a 1:26.2, which will be close, but it might just about be enough to get him through as well. Next up we have Havoc Gamer down in P12. Has invalidated his time, he's going to have to go again. Great Pup has disconnected from the session on his outlap, or possibly even a flying lap. So, oh, he's got into the same glitch. Oh dear. And he wouldn't have the time to set a lap anyway at this point. Jammy Cash about to begin another run. Foot fade through that first sector. He's just going again. But then we have Hart, a second up on his time. Comes around the final corner. And up the line he goes, improves by 1.4 seconds. But it's only enough to get him into P10. At the moment he's through. It's right on the brink. Perkins will not be improving. Max up to the line. He doesn't improve either. It's a 1:30.4 for Max. Having backed off right at the end. He will not be improving on his time. So Max is knocked out in Q2. And we see both Alfa Romeos knocked out. Mr. Business does not set a time. He didn't even go out. So he'll be starting 15th. So it's all down to whether Havoc Gamer can improve on his time to see whether he can get himself through Q3 or whether it'll be Hart. One or the other is going out. The other one is going through to Q3. A bit of a drift through the final chicane for Have a Gamer, but it is enough. He gets through into Q3 and knocked out goes Hart. So, Q2 topped by Fresh by about 2/10 to Jammy, followed by Dan, Jammy Cash, and Footface in P5. Then knocked out we see Hart, Max, Great Pup, Perkins, and Mr. Business. And now we wait to see which one of these 10 drivers will be starting on pole position in that top 10 shootout. So, as Q2 does get underway, we have Jammy Cash as the first car out onto the track, followed by a train which I believe is led by Fresh, which indeed it is. Then behind him, that's Dan as well. And then he's got the Red Bull of Rolling Dice. And then the Ferrari Footface and the McLaren of Kyle, all on their way out of the pit lane. So Johnny Cash through Cop's Corner at the moment. He's just making his way around his outlap before then he'll begin what will be his first flying run of Q3. as the words yet again are not wording. So we see all cars on the circuit right now, except for Kyle and Havoc Gamer, who both of whom have chosen to remain in the box for the time being. As Jamie Cash comes around the final corner, and up the line he goes to begin the first flying lap of Q3, and off he goes into that first corner. Behind him, we have Rolling Dice and Footface beginning laps, and now it's Fresh, who's just starting 1-2, then he'll be followed by Kyle, who'll be followed by Shadow. No, that's Dan on a flying lap. I assumed it'd be Shadow. Dan doesn't typically go out so early in the session. 27-4 in the first sector from Jamie Cash, who's coming through Luffield at the moment, before he goes into Woodcote, then down the old pit straight. Now Jamie Cash takes us away in towards Cops Corner now, takes it completely flat out, goes very, very wide, lifts off the throttle to keep his lap from being invalidated, but there's definitely time to be found there after that mistake that he made. See, as now goes on to the hangar straight. Didn't actually catch what his middle sector split was because I was too busy focusing on his car as he heading in towards the Vale chicane now, then goes into Club. Round Vale he goes, now to the right of Club and up to the line. Jamie Cash sets a 1:25.974. Then Jamie behind him does a 25.4. Footface can only manage a 26.9. He can definitely improve upon that time. Fresh sets to 1:25.8, which isn't quite the time we saw from him in Q2, but it's certainly very solid. Jay-Z with a 26.7. Dan can only manage a 1:26.9, which will definitely have been on a scrub set, or at least a messy lap. That won't be his true pace. Most likely I'd assume as a scrub set. Rolling Dice goes into P4 with a 1:26.7. So I've had 3 cars into the 1:25s already. And Shallow can only manage at 1:27.2. And then we've got Kyle on an outlap now. And still no signs of Havoc Gamer. Footface just seemingly stopped at the side of the road there. That's one way to make sure you're not impeding anyone. You could also just, you know, drive slowly at the side of the road rather than just dead stopping. But, I don't know. I mean, guess he can do what he wants. He's got freedom of driving to a certain extent. As we have Kyle now about to begin his first flying lap, as he's going to go round the final corner and off he goes. Yeah, that was a scrub set from Dan, something 25% worn, which is certainly not ideal if you want to set the fastest time possible. Kyle at the moment is heading in through Chapel right now with a 1:03.8 in that middle sector. It's not bad at all from the McLaren driver. He just needs to keep this lap going, and it could be a very strong time from Kyle. as long as he just makes it to the checkered flag, not to the checkered flag, but to the end of his lap, so that he can actually post it to the leaderboards. As Kyle comes around the final corner, it's just P6 with a 1:26.7. Footface jumps his way up into P4 with a 26.5. Very fine margins from Kyle down, Footface down to Kyle. So that's 2/10 separating 4 cars. Then it's a further 2/10 down to Dan, and then 3 to Shadow. That being said, there will be there's definitely time in Dan's lap, and there's likely time in Shadow's as well. Let's have it Gamer going out to the circuit for the first time in Q3, put in a great qualifying performance last weekend, which earned him P2 for the Brazilian Grand Prix, which he converted to the race lead by turn 1. Sent it into the first corner, took the race lead, and led for a couple of laps before he did eventually get re-overtaken. But it was still a brilliant start to the race for Havoc Gamer, and a brilliant race in general. Which I think he can be very proud of his race that day, as Kyle pulls into the pit lane, and I think Footface will do the same. And Jamie Cash is just on an out lap, and Havoc Gamer has just begun a lap, so off he goes into the first corner. As around the final corner now as well comes Jamie Cash, and he just begins his next run. We've got Shadow on an out lap at the moment with a 27.2 at this stage. He's definitely going to want to improve upon that. It's 27.4 in the first sector for Havoc Gamer, which, as far as I'm aware, is not bad as first sectors go. He's now heading in towards Cop's corner at the moment. It's a flick to the right for his car, and then it's approaching the left-hander, the right-hander, the left-hander. Then lastly, one more right, and a little flick to the left. Oh, he's got out of shape, and he has backed off that time. It looked like a good lap up to that point, but that one snap of oversteer would have cost him so much time down this hanger straight. He showed that it wasn't worth finishing, and instead he's going to save some battery and try to go again. Did not mean to do that. Jamie Cash not improving at the moment, even though this is theoretically a timed lap. He's certainly not pushing. As Jay-Z through that middle sector, 4.5 tenths up at the moment, would see him to a 26.3 or so. Would only get him ahead of Footface for the time being. So those front three seem to be in a league of their own, with Dan looking likely to join them once he sets an actually decent time. With Jamie Cash just going again. We wait to see what he can do as Jay-Z jumps up into P4 with a 1:26.0. Is not bad in the slightest, but that is the best he'll be able to do in the session. There will be no further improvements for Jay-Z, who's currently in P4. Then we have Javi, who's going to be in the final corner soon. Same with Shadow, who is actually on a lap. He's almost 7 tenths up at this stage. Would only be enough for a 26.5, but that 26.5 would be enough for P5 if he can keep all of this string together. Improved by 1.1 seconds to a 26.1, which is enough for P5. Footface getting underway for his final flying lap, as is Dan, one of the favourites for the race victory today, later on today, as he's taking them through the first corner at the moment. We wait for Havoc Gamer to start the lap. He's recharged sufficient ERS, and with not too long left in the session, only 10 seconds. Have a gamer might miss out here if he doesn't get a move on. See, Seed's track position there to Jay-Z, who's just going to be going again. And with only a handful of seconds left to go, Have a gamer has not made it to the flag. So he's going to be 10th at best. As he couldn't make it around in time, spent too long on his outlap. He meets the checkered flag. But as Fresh goes to the top with a 125.2, taking that provisional pole position away by about 2 tenths. Jamie Cash can't improve beyond his current P3 position. Xavi now in the final couple of corners. Can he displace his fellow Dutchman Fresh from the top of the stand, from provisional pole, or will he fall just short as he comes around the final corner and he can't find the time and he's down on his best? And P2 is the best that Xavi can manage. Foot face around the final corner, improved by 4 tenths, but can't get himself ahead of Shadow for P5. Next up we have Dan, who's won 2 races in a row. He can only manage P2. It's a 125.4, which is a very solid time, but it's not quite enough for him. Kyle just about pips Jamie Cash for P2, for P4, sorry, with a 25.6, but it is looking like it's going to be Fresh on pole position for the British Grand Prix. And with Jamie Cash going slowly, that means it will be Fresh and Aston Martin on pole position. One of them is starting P1, the other one down in P18. It will be an Aston Martin sandwich. So a brilliant lap in the end then from Fresh. It's good enough to put him on pole position by about, just by close to 2 tenths, a bit under. As into the pits comes Jamie Cash. Yeah, and now we wait for the Mercedes crew to service his car and put him back into the garage. But now it's all going to come down to that run to the line, whether Fresh can hold off or whether Dan can take the lead into the first corner, or possibly just someone else in the field. So Fresh tops Q3 then and will start from pole position, followed by Dan, Xavi, Kyle, Jamie Cash, Jay-Z, Shadow, Footface, Rolling Dice, and Havoc Gamer. We're getting an early start. Someone readied up early, so we're getting underway with a formation lap earlier than expected. And when we're behind on schedule, I guess it's kind of a good thing. They're going early, so it's mediums and hards across the board, with Fresh on pole position, going with the hards. Dan and Chavi behind him, second and third, are going with the mediums. Kyle in fourth has opted for the hards. Jammy Cash, Jay-Z, Shadow, Footface, Rolling Dice, and Havoc Gamer have all gone with the mediums. Hards, Max, Grape Up, and Perkins opting for the hards. Mr. Business, Anzac Rex, Cliverty Clive, and A Games going with the mediums. So, formation lap just taking us through Max and Beckett's at the moment before we go into Chapel and on to the Hangar Straight. And we wait for that ominous period of the lights coming on, where the suspense builds, and we just wait for lights out. At which point we can see which out of these 18 drivers will emerge victorious. It's looking like it's a medium hard or hard medium one stop. Depends whether we get any safety cars or not. As Fresh is just going to be lining us up on the starting grid before we get ready to go racing in Silverstone. As we wait for the final car of A-Games to line up on the starting grid. And now, 26 laps ahead of the drivers here in Silverstone. 5 red lights, and it's lights out. And away we go, and Fresh has got a good start. But Dan seems to have got a better one. He pulls alongside before turn 1. They make a little bit of contact as Dan tried to go for the move. But Dan does lead them away through the first corner, followed by Chavi, who's jumped past Fresh as well. There's a car off in the gravel already by turn 1. Chavi lunges it down the inside. He makes contact with Dan, and he takes the race lead, forcing his rival off the track. Now Chavi goes wide off the circuit, and all of that, Fresh is now back side by side as they go down onto the Wellington Straight. Dan and Fresh side by side for the race lead. Dan on the outside into Brooklands. Will he swing his way around past Fresh? And he does just about remain in P1 for the time being. Jamie Cash waiting behind the pair of them as well, just to see if he can find any chance to stick his nose up the inside. Does he go for it into Cops? He does just about back out. Fresh gaining massively on Dan. He does stick a wheel up the inside into Cops. Here he goes, they're side by side. Fresh just about doesn't quite have enough to make any moves. They make it through cleanly side by side through Cops. That's how you do it. As Dan keeps his stealth up in the race lead despite that contact with Chavi at the start. Now Jamie Cash closing in the slipstream of Fresh. He's going to pull to the inside. He backs out before the end of the straight. Jamie Cash staying behind for the time being. There's a yellow flag. Hearts is going off somewhere at the start of the Hangar Straight. Jamie Cash trying to find a place to go for the move, but no opportunity arises for him. Dan leading them away at the end of the first lap, with the fast lap as well, about 7 tenths clear of Fresh, who's only about a tenth ahead of Jamie Cash, who's been looking at a move, as going off the track. There's that Shadow tumbling down the order. I think he's had a spin at the first corner. Jamie Cash can't be too aggressive on any overtaking opportunities, or then have Jay-Z trying to go for a move. And Jay-Z not far behind at all, may consider sticking a wheel up the inside if the opportunity arises. He goes a little bit deep through Brooklyn, does Jamie Cash. He's trying to hold on to Fresh ahead of him. But he's not quite close enough to be able to go for any move. Dan extends the advantage out to 0.8 of a second. Fresh going a little bit wide there, might just have picked himself up with a track limits warning, but can't be too sure. But Fresh does seem to be closing that gap down as Clifty Clive gets past the ghosted car, or the AI car of Great Pup, who unfortunately has disconnected. As Fresh is trying to keep as close as he can to Dan. Jamie Cash dropping back a bit from the Aston Martin. But now DRS will be enabled this lap, at which point it may be easier for Fresh to close back in to the Williams here, who hasn't been able to open up that crucial 1 second advantage. There's a yellow flag. Havoc Game has gone off at the final corner. He's lost his front wing, and there's a virtual safety car deployed as Footface gets past Rolling Dice just before it happens, or I think... What is going on between the two of them? Is Footface in that position? Can't quite tell. But now we've got a virtual safety car on lap 3. And we just wait for when it goes green again, anticipating the green flags. As Fresh and Dan close back in, there's a drive-through penalty for Anzac Rex and possibly Hearts as well. Or no, it's just the Alpine driver who picks up a drive-through penalty for speeding under virtual safety car. But that means we now get chucked straight onto the hangar straight, where both these drivers do get DRS. Dan does not get that advantage, but Fresh and Jamie Cash are closing in, but there's no moves to be made anywhere on the circuit. But Jamie Cash, he wants to make this move, but he doesn't quite have the chance. He's on the faster medium tyres compared to the hards. He almost looked at going for the move into the final corner of Club, but he wasn't quite close enough to be able to pull that off. But he's now right on the bumper of the Aston Martin ahead of him, but he doesn't have any chance to go for the move. Havoc Gamer into the pit lane, speeds, and picks up a 5-second time penalty. Will Jamie Cash get the opportunity he needs to go for any move as they go onto the Wellington straight? He gets the DRS, he's deploying ERS, he gets the slipstream, but he doesn't have the straight line speed that he needs as Jamie gets past Jay-Z back up into 4th place, getting back towards where he begun the Grand Prix in 3rd. And soon he'll probably start closing in on Jamie Cash, and then we'll get the move and move on to try and target Fresh up ahead of him. But Jamie Cash has not had the opportunity to go for a move. Dan might have just broken that DRS window, although it was very, very close, but it wasn't quite enough to get that DRS, or to block Fresh from getting that DRS advantage. But here goes Jamie Cash. He's deploying ERS. He goes to the inside into Stowe. They're going to be side by side. There's a bit of contact between the two of them as Jamie Cash tried to go up the inside, but now he lunges it into the Vale chicane. They're going to be side by side. Fresh just holding on for the time being, but all of this is allowing Dan to pull away, and it's allowing Sherry to close in. Dan, that's another fastest lap of the Grand Prix. But this time, Fresh, he's been fighting so hard to remain ahead, but possibly that was a poor decision, because now he's going to lose out, because Jamie Cash will get the DRS, Fresh will not, as he's fallen back too far. It's onto the Wellington straight they go, DRS active for Jamie Cash. He's closing in, but he didn't get the run he needed to go for a move on Fresh, so we'll have to wait for another lap. Fresh goes a bit wide, takes a bit of a later apex, and Jamie Cash looked like he was almost going to just lunge it up the inside. Speaking of lunging it up the inside, Sherry tried to go up for a very opportunistic move through Luffield. It didn't work out for him, That would have been incredibly bold if it worked out. It was incredibly bold even though it didn't work out. But Xavi just couldn't quite make it work. It was brave, it was bold, but possibly it was a bit foolish. It's just cost him a bit of time. He almost thought about going for it into Chapel, which again has just compromised his run and allowed Jamie Cash to pull away down the following straight. Rolling dice, gets himself ahead of Kyle, or does he? Because they're going to be side by side down into the Vale chicane. Rolling dice goes down the inside. Tries to go for a switchback, does Kyle, but the opportunity doesn't arise. Rolling dice gets himself up into 7th place. Oh, just crap. And Fresh, he's closed in a bit, but he's not closed in enough, as he's almost broken that DRS advantage that Jamie Cash had, but he couldn't quite, and now Jamie Cash just pulls back in again. As the yellow flag, Mr. Business is out of the session. I believe he's retired in the pit lane there. Footface, he's quite low with the DRS, but he is in this front train. He goes wide there. I think he might have just slowed enough to avoid any track limits warnings. Smith's Business is out of the session. Jeremy Cash closing in on Fresh, but he's not going to be close enough yet again. He just has to stick behind. Xavi possibly just frustrated. He will have the pace to go for any move, but he hasn't had the opportunity. There's a yellow flag down that hanger straight. I'm not sure who was going slowly there. But what I do know is Jay-Z is right on the bumper of Xavi. He's almost pushing him through Club and onto a Hamilton straight. But he hasn't had the chance to go for any move. So there's not really much you can do in that final sector. You have to wait until the end of the first sector right here for the main overtaking opportunity. Going very slowly there is Jamie Cash and Fresh. Something's happened between the two of them. They've lost a ton of time compared to Dan. They're going to go 3 wide into Brooklands, and Jamie Cash has just about held off Javi. He's going to get forced off the track. They're going to be side by side. Javi getting a 4-wheel drift through Laffield after a bit of contact with Jamie Cash there by the looks of things. And now he's side by side with Fresh again into Cops, but he just about backs out of it. And Jamie Cash has emerged through all of that in P2. I'm not sure how, but something's happened, and Jamie Cash is in second place. And Dan, now just 3 seconds up the road, he's loving it with these cars battling. Here goes Fresh to the inside, gets himself back ahead of Jamie Cash, and into second place. But Jamie's not going to give it up that easily. They're going to go side by side into the Vale chicane. Fresh on the inside, he's still there, but he just about has to back out. And now here goes Jamie on the inside, gets himself up into third place. And now, can he get himself ahead of Jamie Cash as well? And then go chasing up to Dan. But all of this battling is absolutely perfect for the Williams driver, who's just... Ooh, there's been a con out again! Jamie and Jamie Cash can't seem to keep their cars apart. They make contact yet again, and Fresh goes round the outside of the Red Bull driver. And now Fresh is down this Wellington straight. He's got the DRS. He's got the run. He goes to the inside, and he seems to have made the move down through Brooklands. But Jamie goes sweeping past a pair of them on the inside, does he? They're side by side now with Jamie Cash. This battling in this early stage of the race is absolutely it's spectacular from all of them, and Jamie has pulled off one of the greatest moves there. A double on the inside of Brooklands, then he holds it around the outside of Jamie Cash. That is a beautiful move from Jamie to get himself up into second place. But now we're going to see Jamie Cash getting the DRS on him into a down hanger straight in towards Stowe. And that's the point where we're going to see Jamie Cash getting his Mercedes back in front. And all of this battling has allowed Connor Perkins to catch up to this train. All the way down in 8th. As Jamie Cash pulls back ahead of Javi, gets himself into 2nd place. There's a yellow flag rolling. Dice has gone off the circuit. He's going very slowly. He pulls into the pit lane. Goes rolling Dice. Possibly with some damage. He speeds as well. And that's all just not gone to plan. He retires from the session. And that is his race. Well and truly over. Jamie Cash still remaining ahead of Javi. Despite that brilliant move that he made, he can't remain ahead for long, which is the nature of this circuit with the many DRS zones. I don't think I can re-invite Liberty Live. And now Jamie Cash is the being slow on the exit of the corner, possibly trying to convince Javi to go back for the move, but he hasn't had the chance to. But now Javi gets the DRS, he gets the run, does he? I don't think he quite gets a good enough run to go for the move here, but he is closing in regardless. He's closing in, he looks to the outside, but he's not close enough to have any serious attempt. But Jamie Cash here is defending well, and that is playing perfectly into Dan's ideal race. Oh, it's a bit out of shape from Javi, but he keeps it going, and you just need to keep piling on the pressure for Jamie Cash ahead of him, and then he might have a chance of getting the move. Now they go back onto the Wellington straight, but again, Javi's just not close enough to go for any moves. And they were all just getting a bit stuck in this DRS train behind Jamie Cash, who seems to have the lowest downforce out of all of them. And he just pulls away down through the corners and then just keeps ahead down the straights. It's weird because he seems to have both more downforce and more top speed compared to the cuts around him. I don't know if he just gets the perfect exits or what, but he's got his car set up perfectly to defend, but he might not be able to defend against this. Javi goes around the outside, but Jamie Cash just places the car perfectly, but Javi goes for the switchback, and he gets that move done, and Jamie Cash is going into the pits early on lap 10. He bailed into the pits as Javi went for the move, and now there's a bit of a void here in between Fresh and Javi, as the pair of them were previously split by Jamie Cash, but now they're split by nothing. Just an empty gap. I'll try again. There we go. Yeah, he's joined now. Good. But now it's all settled down a tiny bit now that Jamie Cash has pulled into the pit lane. A-Games and Max trying to go side by side. There's a bit of a love tap there from A-Games to Max, who goes very wide, but he just about keeps it on the road. But I'm sure he won't be happy with that. Getting just a little tap, which has sent him just a tiny bit wide, but even a tiny bit wider than you'd like could be multiple tenths lost. And then in a race, every single tenth can matter. Is anyone immediately reacting to Jamie Cash? No one reacts to Jamie Cash's early pit stop. They all stay out, prioritising fresher tyres over track position. So Jamie Cash will likely take the lead, or he'll definitely take P2. May even take the lead depending on how much the undercut is. A Shadow comes into the pit lane from P10. And Jamie Cash is going to start what will be his first actual lap on these fresh tires. We see whether he can take a fastest lap or something similar. Jay-Z going for an opportunistic move through Luffield into Woodcote, but he doesn't have the straight line speed to make it work. But he tried, he just couldn't quite complete it successfully. And he's there with Fresh, but he's just not close enough. And Fresh's tyres don't seem to be coming into their own here. You'd think, after this many laps, Fresh's hard tyres would become faster than mediums. But there doesn't seem to be a change. But into the pit lane comes race leader Dan. He was about 5.7 seconds clear before he came in. He's followed in by Xavi, Jay-Z and Footface, all deciding that now is the time to pit. The top three now are all on the hard tyres, so they're all on different strategies compared to these guys. And it's a set of white-walled hard compound tyres for Dan, who's going to come out the pit lane soon. But we see Jamie Cash, Perkins now disconnecting as well. But Dan coming out of the pit lane. Jamie Cash with the fastest lap of the race. Is it enough to jump the Williams driver? It's not quite. You can see him on the side of your screen, but Dan does remain in the net race lead. So yeah, Dan remains about 2.3 seconds ahead of Jamie Cash, which was considerably less than it was before, but it's still quite a comfortable advantage. But now, how long do these hard tyre runners want to stay out for? The medium compound managed to go about 12 laps for these other cars. But are we saying 12 laps, 13, 14? How long do they want to go? And how long do they want to... How much do they value fresher tyres over track position? Because at this stage, the faster tyres will be the medium compound, or the hard compound on these runners, such as Dan, such as Jamie Cash, such as Xavi, such as Footface, and Jay-Z. All of these guys on these fresh tyres will be the fastest at this stage. But the question is, how much longer do they want to go before they too get this speed advantage? And they'll have it more significantly as they'll be on the faster medium compound. But as we're around half race distance now, this is the sort of point where I think that they'd be considering it if they want to do maybe 12 laps on mediums, 14 on hards. Then they'd come into the pit lane at the end of this lap, which is what most of the medium runners have done, doing 12 laps and then likely 14. Or possibly they're trying to extend for a potential safety car, which we are yet to see in this Grand Prix, but it's never impossible, particularly when you're watching a Tier 2 race. But none of these guys are deciding that now is the time to come into the pit lane. Or possibly looking at the pace. Yeah, Perkins is coming into the pit lane. She was not particularly quick in that last stint on the hards, or those last few laps on the hard compound. So she's coming into the pit lane now, and will... Oh, I've noticed a new bug with the game. It shows... Oh, it doesn't anymore. It's showing freshers on pit limiter. So the fastest lap of the race goes to Jay-Z in 6th place at the moment. Jamie Cash has gained time to Dan on that lap, but he's not gained significantly. And I think at this stage, Dan is just going to be trying to manage a bit, manage the gap, manage the tyres, just make sure he makes it to the end of the Grand Prix. Make sure he doesn't pick up any track limits, penalties, or similar. Because it'd be things like that that would cost him a race win, a championship maybe. But we just wait to see what he'll get up to in these next 11 laps or so. Do we see any of these race leaders into the pit lane? Fresh stays out, Kyle stays out, so Dan will close into their gap even further on this lap. He'll get at least another lap to try and just gain that time. Two of these leaders ahead of him. Just gain time until eventually he's close enough where they can't really consider anything other than to hope for a safety car. Unless possibly they're trying to extend to go to a set of softs, which would be a bold move from both Fresh and from Kyle, but it may work out for them. So we see Great Pup into the pit lane from 12th place, and he's probably going to go onto the set off the medium compound from here. May risk it with some softs, but that does definitely appear to be the yellow water medium tyres. It's quite a slow stop from the Alfa Romeo crew. Not ideal, quite possibly missing his timing in the game. As Perkins gets past A-Games and now starts to run away a bit. And the two leaders do choose that now is the time to come into the pit lane. Fresh and Kyle are both into the pits here from the lead of the Grand Prix, and they're both going to drop multiple positions, possibly as low as P7 and 8 for the two of them. As Dan retakes the race lead away from the two of them, Jamie Cash retakes second. Fresh is still on his pit lane speed limiter. He's going to come out just ahead of Perkins, I think, in 6th and in 7th. But speaking of, she takes the fastest lap of the Grand Prix, and her gap to the two cars that were about 5 seconds up the road is now only 1.5 seconds up the road. And Xavi goes for the move on the inside of Jamie Cash, and I think he gets that move done. As they go around Luffield, he seems to have moved himself up into 2nd place. But you need to remember, Jamie Cash will get that DRS down into Stowe. So nothing is over just yet. It's Havoc Gamer into the pit lane, as is Hearts. Hearts opting for the softs, Havoc Gamer opting for the mediums. But now, Jamie Cash is going to get the DRS, and he pulls to the inside, and he's going to get that place back from Xavi, and moves back up into 2nd place. And Xavi pulls to the outside. Is he going to go for it into the Vale chicane? They're going to be side by side. Xavi just swept his way around the outside through the Vale chicane. That's a very nice move again from the Red Bull driver. Two very nice moves in today's race. First one towards the start. I think that was around lap 8, where he made first the double in through Brooklands and then round the outside through Luffield. And now that one, round the outside at the Vale chicane, became the inside, and he made that work beautifully. Jay-Z just sitting on the back of Jamie Cash. But he does have that 3-second time penalty, which he will have to serve before the end of the Grand Prix. Jay-Z is on the back of Jamie Cash, but I don't think he's close enough to go for a move. Jamie may break the DRS on this lap. He's about 7/10 a lap faster by the looks of things at the moment. So he may just have enough pace to break that fastest lap window and then try to chase after Dan. But I think he's just a bit too far back to be able to do anything in the next 7 laps. He's not been able to break the DRS just yet, but I think, looking at the pace difference, it won't be long, and then we'll see Jay-Z trying to go for a move on Jamie Cash. And then once he gets that done, then I think Jamie Cash will really start to struggle to keep his position and just to keep with him. Although that being said, Jamie Cash has actually pulled off a brilliant middle sector here. And he's right with Javi, and he's completely gapped Jay-Z. So it's a brilliant sector from Jamie Cash, and that gives him the DRS, and he's going to close right back in again. And Jay-Z is going to have a lot of work to do if he wants to get any move. And going a bit wide though is Jamie Cash. That will likely be a track limits warning, which will have to serve before the end of the Grand Prix. And I think one or two more of them for Jamie Cash. Oh, as soon as I spectate Perkins, he just disconnects again. There we go. And now she loses out to A games as well. And she'll probably be max 2 by the time she can rejoin. And it's just such a dumb game at times. Hopefully things like this get sorted for F124. But beta reviews not being promising is not a good sign. So Javi is closing in to Dan's advantage by quite a lot, but Jamie Cash is keeping right with him with this DRS, and he might even try to go for a move, which would really hamper Javi's progress. He does go for the move to the inside. Javi doesn't fight it, which will avoid being held up too much. But Jamie Cash, so far this stint, has been a bit slower than Dan, so he won't want to stay behind for long. Oh, Perkins has now lost out to Max and Shadow. It's... I've relied there with invites, which isn't really my responsibility either. With DRS closing back in on Jamie Cash, but he's not close enough. And I think Jamie Cash will be Dan's lifeline once again, because Xavi was closing in at a pretty solid rate, all things considered. And now he's got Jamie Cash in the way of the Red Bull, and no progress can be made. And he's having to lift into the corners just because of how slow he's going. Footface has just lost a couple of positions, possibly running wide through cops, has dropped him down to P7. I'm not sure what's happened to the Ferrari driver, but Javi gets past Jamie Cash there, who, if he tries to send it, Jamie Cash could hold them both up massively. Javi goes a bit deep, it through the Vale chicane, and Jamie Cash with a lovely switchback there. They're side by side now through Club, and onto that one straight. I think Jamie Cash is just going to get that one. And Xavi's going to have to go again. And this is really, really helping Dan's chances of victory. And just after the detection point, Xavi goes down the inside. He should pick up the DRS. Jamie Cash dive bombs in return, and then compromises Xavi's exit by placing his car just in the right place. But here he goes with the DRS, and Xavi is going to blast back past into Brooklands, and there's nothing Jamie Cash can do about that one, as Fresh also getting past Jay-Z, who's got his teammate Kyle right in the back of him as well. As Kyle does get past Jay-Z, up into 5th place. And that was 5th place for the McLaren driver. As we do approach the dying stages of the Grand Prix, Jamie Cash gets back past Xavi into 2nd place, which again is just not what Xavi wants. He wants a nice clean run onto Dan, but that's not what he's been getting. And now, with only 3 or 4 laps to go, Xavi needs to be a second a lap faster to even get to Dan, let alone pass him. And Dan has 40% ERS left in the bank. He didn't have his hopes high, did Dan, but I think now the reality is starting to set in, and he could be about to win 3 races back to back to back. It could well be the first time in XLR history where we've seen a driver win the same driver winning the first 3 races. I know it certainly didn't happen last season, and it didn't happen in Tier 1 either. I think it will be the first time, or the first time that I can remember at least, since I've been here, that a driver has won the first 3 races in a season, if Dan can just keep it on the road to. And to think that that would be back to back to back, while also in an 8-race season. He's making it look easy at the moment. As Xavi has got back ahead of Jamie Cash, but the Mercedes driver is likely to go for a move into turn 1 as he typically does. So now they go on to the Wellington Straight. Xavi is pulling away a little bit on the exit there, but here comes Jamie Cash with DRS. Is he close enough? He might be a tiny bit too far back, which, yes, he just about is too far back, and Jamie Cash has to wait until the hanger straight if he wants to get a move. Footface gets past Jay-Z, who had a time penalty to his name as well, and moves up into P6. Xavi's right on the back of Jamie Cash, right on the back of Xavi, but he's not quite close enough. This Dan geezer needs to stop winning. He's not going to win Overtake of the Week, though. That's going to Xavi for sure. Just like lap 8 or something, if you want to check, Turkey. Here goes Jamie Cash. He's closing in on Xavi again. Goes to the inside last second. Makes the move. They're side by side through Stowe. And Xavi would have just about held him off. There's a bit of contact between the two of them. But Xavi remains ahead. And now, penultimate lap for Dan. He just needs to hold on, not lose 2 seconds a lap to Javi, and then he should be safe and en route to a third victory in 3 races. Jay-Z and Footface are having a battle, although it won't matter as Jay-Z has that 3-second time penalty and Footface does not. So they go round onto the Wellington Straight for one more time. Jamie Cash not close enough to make any moves. Jay-Z not close enough either, and not willing to take the risk of a late lunge when he has that penalty as well. And I think gonna have a fairly calm final lap, all things considered, after this race. Although, having seen some of the battling, especially in the early stages, there might be 3-second penalties handed out to basically every driver in this top, 4. So they all had banging and barging and shoving, especially on that opening lap. But now it's just 1 lap to go. Just one trip round the Silverstone circuit for Dan, just to hold on to his 4-second advantage on this final lap. So that's Rex getting out of the way. Some of these other drivers have a gamer in the pit lane, having to go a lap down as well. Will we see a last lap move attempt from Jamie Cash here? He's a bit too far back for the time being, but he might be close enough by the time they get to the hangar straight. We've got Fresh on much fresher medium tyres as well. He may be in the shout for that position as well. But I think all these gaps are just a little bit too big for any position changes. But one gap that's been too big for any position changes the entire race, pretty much, has been this gap out front. And Dan has just got one last extra to hold on. 3.5 seconds up the road as he goes in towards Stowe. Fresh might be close enough to go for a move on Jamie Cash though. He goes to the outside, into Stowe. He's going to have to hang it all the way around the outside. Jamie Cash shows him the door, but he's still just about alongside. He did have to go off the track to make that move. He may have to give that place back, but Dan across the line to win his 3rd race out of 3. He's making it look easy. Fresh had just received a 20-second time penalty for that incident, and that's demoted him all the way down to P7. And he's just been given a 20-second time penalty for leaving the track and gaining an advantage. That's an interesting. But Dan is your winner in Silverstone. It's a composed drive that entire time. And he's just kept his cool, kept his margin out front. Right strategy, right tyres. And got helped a lot by Jamie Cash choosing to go for some battles. Just the battling from the cars behind helped him a lot. But Dan, I mean, who can stop him? 3 out of 3. So Dan is your winner in Silverstone after P2 on the grid, took the lead by turn 1 and never looked back really, did he? besides when he got overtaken by Cherry on the first lap, but he made that back pretty much instantly, and from there, didn't turn back. I think he's the only obvious choice for driver of the day. It's getting boring, but at the same time, you have to appreciate it when you see it. Well, that was the British Grand Prix. Thanks for everyone watching the stream, and we'll see you tomorrow evening for some T1 action racing in Saudi Arabia. Have a good rest of your evening, and we will see you tomorrow.